let's wrap up here because I want to take a look at this too. So, one final thing. So we were just talking about, we can do this real quick, but I know this seems like an asinine conversation to have right now because the bull market seemingly has never even begun. But you and I have had conversations about um, profit taking in the past. Like, what is the optimal way to do it? Um, we've debated like many different methods, like basically waiting for your portfolio to be at a certain value, waiting for some of or all or one of the tokens that you hold to get to a certain value, or kind of judging the sentiment of the market. You have those kind of three strategies. Maybe there's more that somebody can put in the chat too, but you have those. But then you also have um, the other ideas you have to take into effect is like actually DCAing out. It's not like you're going to sell in one clip or anything, and managing slippage and things like that. So, of the three strategies I kind of just went over there, what do you make of that? I know we had kind of a heated debate on this in the past, but like, you've admitted before that you felt like you've made mistakes at tops of other bull markets and stuff like that. But generally, like, what is it you are looking for? Is there a dollar amount you want your portfolio to get to? Is there a price of a token you want to get to? How do you kind of approach that?
Well, this cycle, I think I'll be doing a little bit of both. Once the portfolio gets back to a certain level of where I expect it to be, I think I'll definitely start to pay a little bit more attention. I think this cycle, though, we have a lot of tools in place, and I hope they get used. I'm going to use them because, you've got Axis saying how the markets could go a little bit longer than normal, and people may not get to call the top or know what the top is, especially if things get extended. And I think a very undervalued thing that I'll be using are the loan programs. You got liquid loans for Pulse, you've got Earn for PulseX, Flex for Hex, and the ink printer for Incentive. I think the ideal thing to do is to set some loans. You definitely, if there are pullbacks like Hex had before, you want to definitely be careful. But on the way up, as things go, take a loan out, and if the price continues to rise, that'd be a good thing. You can continue to borrow more and more as it goes up. So it's not like selling and saying, "Oh shit, it kept going." You know what I mean? I think you can capitalize on the fact that it's still going up, and that original loan that you made, as long as you don't do it at a very top where there's a pullback, and then it continues to run. As long as you don't get liquidated, if you set the parameters to where you have enough over collateralization, that you do have a little bit of. Yeah, I hear your mic now.
You do hear that? Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good there.
Sorry.
So
go ahead.
Just be careful in case it did surge. But either way,
yeah.
If you have over collateralization and it continues to run, you can continue to pull some value out of that as it goes up. And hopefully you do get a better chance of catching a top. You can continue to extract here and there as it runs, and you're not so worried about saying, all right, I got to hit the top exactly or as close to it as possible. I think the loan programs are going to be very good for that. And then if it does fall down and it does crash and you get liquidated, well, that was the same as selling anyway. And you probably took a 10% loss on doing that. Whereas if you sold a big portion of a bag all in one, you're probably going to lose more than 10% slippage, depending on liquidity. So, I think it's going to be a good way for people to dollar cost out, and as the market continues to go up, still extract a little bit more value on the original loan. So I think that's going to be part of my strategy. I'm going to have a couple different ones at play, but I think that'll be one of the major ones that I try to use anyway.
I think that is definitely a great strategy. Anytime that you can avoid, the potential slippage, obviously tax implications and stuff like that. There's plenty of tools at our disposal that you can DCA out of the market without necessarily doing like a live
Well, hang
trade.
on. If your loan gets liquidated, that still is a taxable event. You got to be careful about that. But yes, keep going. Sorry.
I didn't mean to go down the tax road. I didn't mean that as much, but just other ways of doing things that are easier, more advantageous. You don't have to be right there at your computer doing them. What was the other point? Oh, and so when we talked about this in the past, like my big thing is, and I think this is like a huge caution, is if there is an amount of money that you want your portfolio to get to, definitely not targeting that as like, this is when I would like to start scaling out of the market, because a million things could happen. We could not get there, number one, and then you know, round trip a bull market into a bear market all over again. I think it's a good idea to have in your mind an amount of money that you would like to have to reach your goals, obviously, and then like literally I have like a document with exactly what I want everything to look like, how much I want it to be, what I would do with it as soon as that happened. I think you have to have a very sturdy plan like that, but you also have to plan for alternate scenarios. Like, what if you don't get there? What if it's more than that? And how you're still going to treat it. That's why, like, to me, I would much prefer scaling out of stuff when it seems as if the sentiment of the bull market is super high, rather than looking at any specific price or anything. Even if you have, you know, very sturdy price targets in mind that you think you're going to reach or something like that, I would just rather rely on sentiment, because that way I don't think you can really get broken. You know what I mean?
Well, you can get broken when sentiment starts to take off and people are screenshotting their profiles or their portfolio every day. You know, things are heating up. But again, if you sell too early and it runs away from you, then you're kicking yourself. There is nothing wrong, obviously, with taking profits. Anything more than what you bought in for, you can't complain about, right? But there are always those what ifs. So, you know, and I'm not saying exit at 100% the second you see that, right? So, I mean, there's still the ladder effect of coming out. And NJ Dub said, you know, about the V3, the single-sided liquidity. At certain levels, you put a little bit for sale here and you put a little bit for sale here, and if it hits that level and you exit out, you know, people are buying into your liquidity that way. So, you know, that is another strategy that works very well. So
and clearly I didn't mean you would sell everything, but I think it's just a good indicator to maybe scale out of the market, because you're right. You know, you'll be almost like wrecked in an opposite direction if you would get out of everything, and then all of a sudden we shoot to new heights that you never even thought was possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to do that either. That's why, like, I know people shit on Bob Lucas and stuff on here, but like, just totally different worldview of crypto. I understand that. But when we had the downturn for Bitcoin a couple months back at this point, where we did get into the 70Ks again and hit that support of like 73, 74K or something, he just in case sold I don't know if I would have done this much, but in the small chance that it could have been, you know, the end of the bull market or whatever, he sold a third of his position, was totally happy with it. And all these people are making fun of him and saying, "You idiot, what are you doing?" and all this stuff. But it's part of his plan. Like, he doesn't give a shit. Like, it's that's what the plan was. He's still majority in the market, and I would have defended him on that, because I understood where he followed a plan that he had, and he de-risked at a pre-planned condition. And